As we transition into thinking about how our web pages will look, the crucial connection between the markup we have in place and the styles we want to add is the tag names, class attributes, and ID attributes we have in place. These become hooks we can use to select elements and apply styles to them. Before we can add styles, though, we need to get a style sheet attached or embedded into our document. An embedded style sheet is one we place directly into an HTML document here in the head tag, inside style tags. So here I've made all elements in this document colored red. This is great if I want such styles applied just in this one document, and there are times when this is practical. But most of the time, we want to establish styles for an entire site. It would become very repetitive and inefficient to place duplicate styles in each document directly like this. Instead, we can use external style sheets. These are separate files with a .css extension. We can place style rules in these documents and then link them into any page in our site. We just add a link tag in the head here and point to the CSS file. It's also a best practice to declare the type as text/CSS and the rel attribute as style sheet. Now you can see these styles applied. And if we change the CSS file, we see the changes here. And we would see them in any other files that point to this same style sheet. So now we can use CSS to select and style any HTML tag in our document. So don't worry about the particular settings I'm using in this video, but rather the fact that I can select and style particular elements. We'll cover the styles themselves in future lessons. So for example, if I want to make all paragraphs in this document blue, I can select P tags like this and set their color to blue. Notice the two main parts of a style rule. The part enclosed in the curly braces is the style declaration block, and we can add as many style settings here as we'd like. But what these styles will be applied to depends on what we place here as the selector. In this case, I've used a simple tag selector and select and apply these styles to all P tags in this document. Likewise, I can style all H2 tags like this. Or all M tags like this. Behold the power of CSS. But our selectors are not limited to just tags. We can also select by class and ID attributes. You should recall from earlier in the course that we can add these attributes to any element. Classes can be reused inside a document, and so they're more versatile than IDs. I prefer to use exclusively classes for my styles. To select a class, you can simply enter the class name preceded by a period. However, note that it is also possible to place multiple class names on an element. In HTML, we separate each distinct class name with a space character. Then each of these can be used as a hook to apply different sets of styles. See here I have a class of intro set to bold elements. And I'll add a class of lead set to make such an element larger in size. So this element that has both classes is both bolded and enlarged. Now IDs can be useful to target specific elements. So while class attributes can be applied to multiple elements in a document, ID attributes should only be used once in a document. This makes them very specific for targeting an individual element. So here I have an ID attribute on this element. I can select it by this ID in my CSS by entering a pound, followed by the ID value, brand. This is a very powerful way to select a specific element, since it should be the only one in this document with that ID. But we'll return to this idea a little bit later. One other category of selectors to cover at this point is nested selectors. These allow us to narrow our selections by dealing with elements that are within other elements. We can select elements inside other elements like this. The outer element comes first, followed by a space, and then the inner element that we will actually target. So this last element is what we'll actually apply the styles to, and the first element allows us to narrow to only elements inside of this element. So we could say only M tags inside an LI tag. This one is inside an LI as we indicated, while this one is not. We can do the same thing using tags, classes, or IDs in either placeholder. So this selects P tags inside something with an ID of module 1. Notice that this is a very general nesting and applies beyond a direct descendant. So here we've indicated that any B tags inside a block quote are turned green. And it works on this B tag, even though it's not directly inside the block quote, it's several layers in, but it's still inside the block quote. So block quote B works. We can also use several layers, more than 2 that is. Here we indicate that an A tag inside a nav that is inside a header is to be affected. As a result, only this tag is affected. Now, as we get more into working with CSS, we might find it helpful to start turning on this helpful tool called the inspector. I also recommend that you work in Google Chrome so that you see the same thing between your computer and these videos. You can open this from View, Developer, Developer Tools, or right-click on an element and choose Inspect. Here I see my source HTML code from Codio, and on the side here the CSS styles that are affecting the element I have selected from the left. So back to the styles I've added. This link is not affected since it is only inside header, but not also inside nav. And this one is not affected because it's inside a nav, but it's not inside a header. Last of all, we return to the other topic of specificity. So generally, it is quite possible that we will apply conflicting style rules to any given element. See, if I had a font size of 16 pixels and a font weight of normal to all paragraphs, here in the inspector I can see that this general style is overridden by these more specific styles for intro paragraphs and lead paragraphs. Specificity establishes how the browser determines which conflicting styles trump others. So tag selectors are the most general and basic selectors, and they are overridden by class selectors. And class selectors in turn are overridden by ID selectors. The inspector makes this clash and override easy to trace. So if a style is not applying the way you expect, first check to make sure you don't have a typo or an incorrect value. Then check the element in the inspector to see if there's a specificity issue to resolve. Resolve such an issue by increasing the specificity of a selector to ensure that it wins the war. This is an important topic that will likely resurface as we move forward. Now, last of all, note that there are many other kinds of selectors we can use that are not covered in this video. Be sure to note those covered in the book, such as the pseudo-class selectors for link states like the hover state, and the nifty first child and last child selectors, which will come in handy a little bit later.